So basically Docker information command, this command will give you all the information about your installed version on your machine. That means whatever Docker you have installed, it will give you all the information, right? Yesterday I was mentioning that the GitHub repository link and everything is already configured, right? So whenever you want to pull the image, it will directly go to Docker Hub, right? So we will see the information through this command, docker info command. So let me fire this command, docker info command, right? And you see it has given me a lot of output, right? So let me go on top and read the information one by one. So this is the command I just fired, and it gives me information about client, right? So client and all that thing, debug mode and all that thing. We can fire command and we can change all these things. So that's fine. Let it be default. Now come to the server. So server will display the status of your containers. That means how many containers are running. Currently, I've just done a fresh installation. So 0 container. I've not started even single container. So nothing is running, right? How many containers are in a running state? How many containers are in a pause state? Pause means they were running, but you stopped them for some reason, right? What would be the reason? That I will talk about it in today's session. Or is there any container which you have stopped it, right? You don't need that container at this point of time, but maybe later. So you might have stopped it, right? And how many images has been downloaded on your machine. So it will give you the statics, right? Currently it says 0, 0, 0, 0 because we haven't downloaded any images. We haven't started any container, and there's the reason there's no status. So all this, right? You see the main header is container, and inside that there is a space, right? It's not in the same vertical line. There is a space. So these are the status, right? And then there is the image. So it gives you the information on container and images. And Docker is all about images and containers, because image will provide me the source code of my application, and container is nothing but a running instance of an image. All right, so very simple. So once you have the source code, and then you start the application, that is container. So running instance of an image is container, or running instance of an application coming through where? Through images, because Docker has only one format, that is image format. It doesn't have too many things to remember, only one standard format, that is image. All right, so that is what we are going to do it. And then server version we already know, 20.10.21 is the version of my Docker. Docker also comes with the storage driver, right? So it automatically maps the file system so that we can pull any data, or I want to create any data I want for test data for my application to be tested. That all that we can do by having its own driver, right? I will also use these drivers, right? Eventually to create my storage, right? At a later point of time, we will be doing this drive. We will be using this driver to create our own storage. So it comes with its own driver, and the name of the driver is overlay 2. Right? Earlier it was overlay. Later they upgraded the version and they changed it to overlay 2. All right. So this is just a version. Right. So we'll talk about overlay little later. So it comes with a storage driver. So it displays the information about the storage driver also. It comes with the file system. Right. File system is extfs. Right. Ext file system is basically Linux file system. And I've installed Docker on Ubuntu, which is again Linux only. So this is the Linux file system which is supported. And then it supports D type, right? So D type is nothing but daemon type and all that native overlay difference and all that thing, which are basically driver internal storage driver. If you see, this is the storage driver, and these are the sub property. They are not in the same particular. They are basically slightly inside. So all these are basically the properties of driver, right? And then we have a logging driver. Logging means log. All my log files are displayed in a by default JSON format. All right, JSON format is more or less is like a key value pair, right? XML, JSON, all these are key value pair, right? So we do a lot of things through JSON. Even we can send data, right, through the APIs, right? So APIs, they also, right, pick up the JSON format, right? So all that we can do through JSON. So my log will be displayed in a JSON file format, right? Is that the only format? No, right? There are so many formats which we'll talk eventually. So the log driver will be by default, it's a JSON file format. Then Linux control group. So control group we are using, right, internal CG group file system, which is fine. Control group version is 1. It's all basically Linux thing, Linux kernel or Linux OS side, which is fine. Then Docker comes with few plugins. All right, it comes with few plugins. What are the plugins? You see subcategory. There are 3 categories inside plugins. We have volume, network, and log. Right, so these are the 3 subcategories. So let me talk about volume. Volume is basically when you configure your own storage for your application, might be database application, or you want to have a centralized storage so that all your applications should go and take the information from a centralized storage, or if you are creating a new data, it should go to that centralized volume only, right? So we can even use the volumes, right? So here I can use based on my project requirements, right? So we can create our own volumes and the driver is available, right? And the name of driver is also local, right? So we'll be using all these things when we will configure volumes. There is a separate module in Docker, and we will be having one full session, right? And we will take all the use cases, how to configure, how to use it, right? How to share with others, all that thing we will be using it. But we have a plugin available, so I need not to go outside and look for plugin. Hey, where's my Docker plugin? I want to do this, right? Docker has already is going to provide me from its own catalog, right? So here we can see all that thing. Same way, networking side also, we have so many plugins available, right? Basically, you see there are 6 types of networking which Docker support. One is by default bridge, right? So bridge is basically eventually we Linux and everybody is a standard network, and Docker also use a default Linux network which we call bridge. What is bridge? Actually, we will talk because we have a separate session on Docker networking, and that time we will talk about all that thing and all networking nuances like IP address, subnet, default gateway, right? Let's say I'm working for multiple customer. Right, I have one customer Google, another customer IBM, another customer Oracle, Infosys, Wipro, blah 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 blah, and I can create dedicated network for Oracle, dedicated network for Wipro, dedicated network for Infosys. My applications are running only on Infosys network. My applications are running only on IBM network. All that we can do using these network plugins, right? So we have a host network means if my laptop is connected to a dedicated network, let's say office network or a client side we are working, right? So we can connect to the client's host network. That host means the client network, right? So if I go to office and I want to connect my laptop to my office or my Docker instance, I can use the host network. So it will automatically take all the configuration from the host network and my Docker will be connected, right? So all that we can use, right? All these plugins are already available. IP VLAN is something like MAC address, right? Physical, right? So we can even bind whenever I restart my machine, I can bind to the same network again and again so that it should not go out of the network. So we can even use IP VLAN and all that thing, right? Which is slightly advanced. Mac VLAN is traditional thing, right? So traditionally we were using Mac VLAN almost more than a decades, right? Now we have so many things, IP VLAN and right. Even again IP VLAN we have IP address 4 version, IP address 6 version, and all that thing, right? So slightly all in detail we will talk little later, right? And then we have null. Null means I can create only standalone network that only for my R&D purpose. Nobody else can use that network or nobody else can connect to my network, right? I want to do some R&D and I can create my standalone networks, right? It is not a shared network that other people will come and start joining and sharing it, right? It is not like that. I can create a standalone network. So for others, it would be null network. So we can do that. Overlay basically when you create a cluster-based environment, right? So basically Kubernetes or Docker Swarm, right? When we will be having a multiple machines plugged together and create our own server farm, or I would say cluster environment. That time we use a different type of networking, which we call overlay, right? Overlay, you see, it's going to be an interesting thing. So here also we saw overlay storage driver, and here is also networking also type of overlay, right? Overlay we will see when we create, because we already have a plan to create cluster environment and various things, right? So that time we'll pick it up. But what I mean to say is Docker gives all the information, and through this command you will get to see what all things Docker brings when you install the Docker on your machine. So these are the things which are already configured. These are already things which are available. You can use one by one and you can do whatever the configuration you want to do, update, change, or based on your customization, we can do all that thing because plugins are available. Here's one more call. There's one more category, right? So plugins for log files. So as I said, by default it is JSON, right? By default it is the JSON. But if you see, we can route our Docker logs to other tools also. Let's say I want to integrate with some monitoring tool so that we can manage, we can monitor all our Docker applications which are running as a container, right? So I can route the log right through the AWS, right? So AWS log format also I can integrate it and I can route my Docker log. So it will be visible, right? In AWS log format also. AWS uses so many services inbuilt, right? So AWS is a huge cloud platform, right? It's a cloud platform vendor who offers me so many services, database services, API services, AI services, artificial intelligence services, analytics service, monitoring service, right? Any cloud platform service, various things, right? So here we can use. Then we have another category called FluntD, right? FluntD is basically it's ELK monitoring, right? If you have heard of ELK, right? ELK is basically real-time monitoring, right? For Elastic Login Test Kibana, right? ELK in short, right? So you can even integrate your Docker logs with ELK log, and it will automatically the stream of logs will be collected by a FluentD agent, and it will send to the monitoring server, might be at a centralized server. So it will collect the log from various machines where my Docker is running automatically and send to the monitoring tool. Monitoring tool nowadays comes with analytical engine, right? It will send the log. The monitoring tool analytical engine will process these logs as an input, and it will filter the unwanted information, and it will take only appropriate information which will be displayed on a dashboard kind of thing, right? So you can see some indicators. Green means all Docker servers are running fine, right? Yellow means somebody is sending warning, attention is needed. Red means something has really gone down, right? And immediate attention is needed, right? So all that we can even route the logs to various monitoring tools, and these are the all various formats, right? Where the logs can be converted, right? Same way Google Clouds, right? Google Cloud Platform, GCP, right? Even we can merge and we can integrate with GCP, right? Google Cloud Platform, right? And they have their own monitoring format and all the things. So Docker log is supporting with all the format, right? General D is also, right? A similar kind of the log format where we can even convert our Docker log. So Docker log supports various formats of log, right? So that we can integrate with analytical AI or monitoring. And then JSON, as I already said, JSON is already picked up as our default log, right? So JSON format is also supported. Or your local environment, right? Let's say locally you want to track and monitor, right? As is, right? So as a Docker level, right? And I want to just monitor. I don't want to use anything or integrate with anything. We can use as a local format, which is Dockerfile format, which we say we can even take it. Log entries, Splunk, right? These are again very popular monitoring tool. Monitoring tool, right? They come with so many other things, and there are various wide range of monitoring tool. If you know SIEM tools, SIEM is basically security information event management tool. They capture each and every event management, right? Every event will be captured. Normally for banking application, right? So ATM machines and all those machines, right? Where the money is dispensable by machine itself, right? And there are so many times, right? Bank has a millions of customer, right? And people can withdraw money from anywhere, right? So normally for those events, we use SIEM tools, right? Splunk is one of them, Splunk, Datadog, right? Which can be integrated with various infrastructure tools, and it will collect the logs from each and everything based on events. So what all events will occur in a 1 second or maybe 1 minute, it will capture everything into a log files, right? So every event. So sometime when you go to ATM and your transaction fails, right? After a few hours, right? Maybe 1 or 2 hours, the money will be basically loaded back to your account. If the transaction has happened, but money is not dispensed by the machine, but the machine you get a message that so and so amount is deducted, but actually the physically you didn't get you didn't get the money, you didn't get the currency, right? Because the currency was not, right, loaded and it was not dispensed, so transaction was failed actually, but you already got a SMS that so much money has been deducted from your account, but which is not the real case. Sometimes it happens, right? So they will just check the log. So all the event based tools we have, log entries, Splunk, all that thing can be, even Docker logs can be converted or routed to these tools. Syslog is system log, right? So even the system log, right? So Unix has its own, right, system logs and all that thing. Even we can convert our Docker to that system logs also. So if you are creating some ready-made templates and you want to send some SMTP email notification on a templatized that, okay, this is the header of the error, this will be the language, and there will be some error code so that people can know, okay, from where this error has come, right? And it will send email notification, right? Nowadays we have automated environment end-to-end integrated, where we will get the notifications also, right? So SMS notification comes from my bank transaction. Same way system side also we can get notification whether the backup is failed, backup is done, all that thing, right? You might have noticed in mobile phone, if you enable WhatsApp backup, right? So sometime backup fails or something, you get a notification. So same notification also we can have it here also. So there are so many things, right? So these plugins basically they are huge range. Networking you see, volume we have local plugin, and we have so many for log which supports with all the keeping in mind in AI and monitoring, right? And all other observability tool and all that thing. All right, so logs can be routed and integrated to all other advanced monitoring tools as well. Now you see Docker, when you install Docker Swarm also get installed by default, right? So you need not to worry about anything. When you install Docker brings so many things along with it, right? As a platform. So Docker gives you even Docker Swarm layer. What is Docker Swarm? Docker Swarm is basically orchestration layer, right? Orchestration means basically it will manage your containers, right? It will do monitoring, it will manage your containers. But Docker Swarm is basically a separate layer on top of container engine, and basically this is used for orchestration, right? Kubernetes is an orchestration tool. It will orchestrate your application, basically container application, right? Orchestration basically new term, right? New terminology. As I said, we'll be learning many new terminology. So orchestration means something to manage. What to manage? My containers. Yeah, what do you mean by containers? My application which are running in container, right? So that means it is going to manage my application directly, right? But in a container format, right? So Docker Swarm is basically a cluster-based environment, not a single instance of Docker. We can install Docker on multiple machines, and I can, through networking, I can club together so that one machine can talk to another using this tool called Docker Swarm, right? So Docker Swarm is already downloaded and all the installer and everything is available, but by default the status is inactive. That means whenever you need it, you can activate it, right? So at this point we don't need it, but later once we have basic understanding of Docker and we know little more advanced things, eventually we will create our own cluster base or server farm by having multiple Docker servers, and we will integrate through Docker Swarm as a cluster based environment, right? And it will manage all my machines automatically. I need not to manage machine 1, machine 2, machine 3, right? No need to manage. Docker Swarm will manage because it has orchestration layer, it has a management layer. All right, so that will manage my applications which are running, that also it will be managed, plus Docker server also it will be managed by this guy, but currently it is inactive, which is fine, right? We don't want to unnecessarily load my container engine with so many things. When I'm not using it, let it be disabled. So it is inactive, but by firing just one command I can activate it. All right, so we have a use session. There would be multiple session to set up the Docker Swarm, right, cluster, and how to set up this cluster, and eventually we will activate it when we will be moving ahead with a cluster based Docker environment, right? So basically orchestration, all that thing will be activated the moment I activate it. Currently it is inactive, let it be inactive, right? So this we will be doing very soon. Runtimes. Every tool needs a runtime environment. Otherwise, right, my application won't be launched, right? Java runtime you might have heard, right? Spring Boot and all that thing, we need runtime, right? Even for .NET also we need runtime so that when I launch the application, the runtime environment will launch my application in a healthy mode. So what all needed for my application, it will be taken care. My environment should be ready with that. Maybe some prerequisites needed, or maybe some services need to be started, or maybe some post installation configuration need to be done. Everything we will do it. So Docker also creates a runtime, right? Basically IO container run C1 and run C version 1 and 2 both are there. So previously if you are using Docker, right, not 20.10.21 version, right, but the older version, might be you are using Docker from last 5 years, right? Your company or your organization or your customer side, they are using Docker from last 5 years, but they have not upgraded. They are still at the lower version. So Docker runtime supports both the version, right? The recent version V2 or even the older version. They have not deprecated it. That means they are not forcing that, okay, your old environment is useless, right? And it will not support it and you have to do a investment to upgrade it to the latest version. They are not forcing. Docker, right? Docker is supporting even the older version if you are at V1 and V2, right? There is a very slight difference, not much, right? So both the environments, right, supported. Basically, container is nothing but our Docker engine, right? So that is what our Docker, right, brings with. server which is daemon, then API, and the client through which we fire the commands, right? Yesterday we have seen, today we'll also do, right? And then all these are Linux, right? Because we are running on Linux, right? So this is my Ubuntu machine. Run C is basically by default, we don't specify one version and two version. We say run C, right? Run C is a runtime container environment. All right. So it will automatically set my environment, right? Might be sometime we need to set the path, right? Okay, pick up my DLL from this thing. My executables are available here. My drivers, prerequisites, or my pre-installation softwares are available on Solo. So we set environment variables, right? Post installation, we have to do some right configuration, right? Maybe port or restart service or so many things as a post installation, and then we can launch the application, right? So the runtime environment is automatically taken care in the for Docker. Yesterday you might have seen when I was pulling the image, I need not to do any configurations, right? Neither before, neither after, right? I no need not to do any configuration, right? It was automatically pulling the image. Did I did any configuration to okay go to that Docker Hub repository and look for this thing and then only you will be able to download it? Did I do that? No, because it was already done, right? So all that will be taken care as a runtime. So Docker comes with runtime environment. When you integrate Docker with Kubernetes, right, or other tools, that time this runtime environment will basically help you, right? So all the behind the scene, right? Kubernetes will talk to Docker. You cannot initiate command or instruction because it's an automated, right? So it will automatically talk to my Docker, right? Because of this runtime environment, and it will get right all the RPC call from the other software, right? So when we have Kubernetes, we again need Docker, right? Because Kubernetes we cannot create containers, right? To create containers we need Docker, right? Kubernetes can only manage container, but it cannot, it has no capability to create containers on its own, right? So Docker Kubernetes has a dependency on Docker, and that's the reason we are learning Docker first, so that we can replicate all the dependencies, all the requirement for Kubernetes, right? So we are not picked up Kubernetes as our base course. We are starting with Docker first because Kubernetes is also dependent on Docker, right? Why? Because we cannot create containers on Kubernetes, right? Kubernetes will help me to manage it, but not to create it, right? So we have runtime environment. So default, if you see out of so many runtimes which are supported, default is run C. Right, so we say run C, right? We are not specifically saying, okay, it will support only V1 version or V2 version. No, run C. Basically, these are inbuilt runtime, right? We need not to worry about it, right? The moment you load along with your operating system, it will automatically do that. And when you bring Kubernetes or that thing, right, they will be basically talking to each other. How that integration layer and all that thing, I'll tell you, right? There is one point, right, through which Kubernetes will initiate a request to Docker, and Docker will handle the request and send the response back to Kubernetes, right? So how the communication happens, that I will show you, right? So we will see all that thing slightly in detail, right? And init binary, right? So these are basically internal dependent binary which we have Docker init, right? So every environment, right? It's basically inbuilt, right? So when you have container engine, right? So basically it's nothing but group of binaries and all that thing which we say initialization, right, in it, right? So that we already have a Docker in it. Then it's all basically container D version and all that which are default, right? So these are all run C and all that thing is part of right our default Docker run environment. Now Docker comes right, not only Docker, mostly most of the software they come with inbuilt security, right? Your software should not be hijacked, right? It should basically a basic level of security should be supported so that nobody can do it. So Docker does its own hardening by having security modules as an inbuilt security options, right? So what are those? So basically we have app armor, seccomp. These are the security profiles which are loaded. So all that threat modeling and all that thing unnecessary people can come and right take my application, right? So all the vulnerabilities, all that cannot be exposed. Otherwise, people will, if my system is vulnerable, people can come and they can hijack my system, right? And we lose the thing. So Docker has a security architecture compliant already inbuilt. So it is compliant, right? So what happens is we have various modules, and the moment you activate this guy, you will get to see all the security thing, because when you have multiple machines, how one machine will trust other machine? Because Docker says, I will communicate with only trusted servers, right? That means only to known server, not to unknown. If somebody is trying to connect to the cluster environment. If he wants has his own machine and want to plug in, right, he cannot do that, right, because of the security layer. So Docker Kubernetes, they have a very security, right, tight, very security tight, right, and they verify each and every component should have a security enable, and they once they will verify the certificate, right, in the background, right. Kubernetes basically does it, right. Then only it will communicate, right? Then only it will talk. Otherwise, it will say, "Who are you?" Right? You are a unknown devil, and let's not talk. So there will be no response, right? But because of the security, and we will see all this module when we will activate it. So it's again inbuilt thing. And it use default profile. That means I need not to have any configurations, right? I need not to do anything. It will be taken care by Docker itself. Kubernetes also use so many things. Kubernetes, we will see everything, right? Security and all that thing. Then kernel, we are using Linux kernel, so it is giving the kernel version. So basically 5.13, which we are using, right? And it is basically AWS. So AWS has no OS. Don't worry, right? So it is not provided by OS. AWS is just a facilitator, right? It is facilitating that, okay, you can load the Linux image for your environment. So for my EC2 instance, we picked up Ubuntu 20.04 LTS version, right? And this is just a facilitator, so don't get confused with AWS that AWS is providing the Linux operating system. No, right? So it is not by AWS. AWS is just basically, right, readily available softwares you can pick up and you can download. So it is facilitator, not AWS. AWS doesn't have anything, right? It has picked up everything from the market, right? Even the operating system, right? Microsoft has so many things. Microsoft has its own database, SQL database. Microsoft has operating system, Windows. AWS doesn't have anything, but still it is leading in the market, right? Why? Sometime I'll tell you all the stories, right? So not today. Operating system, obviously it is Ubuntu 20.04, which I was talking, right? And LTS means long-term support. So very much, right? So it is supported version, right? And OS type is Linux, 64-bit architecture, right? What is my machine configuration? 1 CPU and 1 GB RAM, right? Approximately one, right? 967.9, right? MB, right? Megabyte. So we still, right, have the same config on which my Docker is installed, which is 1 CPU and 1 GB RAM. Alright, so this is the machine configuration. These are all machine configuration, right? So if you see Linux, Ubuntu, all that thing, this is my thing. This is my host name on which it is done. If you see the IP address 172.31.89.248, right, which is this. So it is my machine host name, right? And it has its own ID, right? So MAC ID kind of thing, which so it maintains its own, right? So when you have colon, that means it's related to some MAC ID. So it maintains that host machine and MAC ID, which is coming from AWS. So it is giving display here. Now this is really important, this property. So Docker info, when you do, always look at the plugins and what is your root directory, right? Where Docker is going to put everything. I'll be downloading images, but what is the default path? When I download containers, what is the default path where I can go and check? So basically this is my root directory, varlib docker. So varlib, inside that Docker folder is there, and Docker is going to keep everything in this thing. So Docker is basically a structured application, right? You will never be lost. Yeah, right. So you can go and you can check. So if I want to show you, I'll just show you, right, what all things are there. So basically this is my root directory and we will see, right? Debug mode is false, right? So that's fine. Let it be default. We can enable it, right? Just one command, set it to true. It will be, right, activated. Let it be, right? Now you see registry, right? Registry. So basically this is the URL, right? It goes to, right, Docker Hub automatically, right? So this is the URL. It goes to Docker Hub. So I was saying, right, you need not to worry about it. It will automatically go and do it. Why it is showing like this? Okay, so basically it's a system call. So basically it directly goes to Docker Hub. So it directly goes to this URL because the URL is configured here, right? Registry. So we need not to do that. It will automatically go to my registry. Registry is repository, as I told you, right? Repository where all my container applications are there. All right. So it is basically there. I cannot export directly, right? So maybe it needs some certificate or something which it will automatically do and there's a system call, right? So I will try to pull the image and it will directly go to Docker Hub by default. So my registry URL is already mentioned here, right? So I need not to do any configurations, right? So what was the command I fired to get to see all the information? Docker info command, right? So and Docker info command, any kind of Docker installation, maybe Windows, Linux, right, Mac, right, or any other Red Hat operating system, anything, right, these commands will never change, right? Commands will be whatever we are learning, right, is applicable to all the Docker installations, because installation is fine, but architecture will remain same. Nobody can change the architecture. So these configurations, what we are seeing, will be visible, right, by just by firing Docker info command, even you will get to see all the things. So my Docker URL is also mentioned over here. All right. So it was trying to load Docker page only. So it will go to Docker repository because it's a registry URL. All right. Are we using experimental feature of Docker? No. It is not alpha beta software which we have installed. It's a full-fledged feature, right? But without AMC, right? If I get stuck, I have to resolve the issue, or I have to go to GitHub repository of Docker and issue the ticket, and probably they will take their own time, right? It's not that I'm going to pay them so they will be working on my tickets immediately. No, right? So, but it is not a experimental version. Experimental version which we have downloaded, right? It is basically the actual version of Docker which we have done, right? And insecure registry is nothing but local host and all that thing, right? And all that thing are there. So if you see so many information, right, the single command gives, right? Now here the crux is this information will be updated automatically. Currently it says 000, but moment I start the container, it will update this thing. So we will use this command today many times, and we will validate the, right, whether container is running, container is stopped or paused, right? How many images downloaded, we will see. It will update these statics automatically. All right, so it is going to be basically maintain the live status. Normally when you work in shift, people first come here, Docker info command they fire, and they see how many container running, what is the status. They will check directly here, right? Other thing, as I told you yesterday, what is the command? Docker ps to print the status of running containers. So I see nothing is running. That's why it was showing 00. Or I say all, right? PS means only give the status of running container. If the container is running, it will display only running. But I want all, whether it is running, not running, stopped, deleted, removed, right? Exited, everything I want to see, then put hyphen hyphen all, right? Nothing is running, right? Or as a shortcut, as I told you, single hyphen and first letter of argument. All means first letter is A, right? So nothing is running, right? Same way for Docker images, right? Nothing is there. So that means this 00 is giving me the current state, right? Nothing is running. Everything is 00. So let me do a small thing and then we will again do it. So let me pull command. What should I pull? Any image. So let's say Ubuntu, right? So in Docker, versioning is handled by colon, right? If I want to download, let's say 18.04 version explicitly, right? Then you should use colon and give the version. It will go and look for this version on Docker Hub, and if it is available, it will pull from this version only. If you don't give version, if you give just like this, it will always take a latest. If you don't mention, it will take always latest. Latest is default, right? For any application, if you don't mention the version, it is latest. But you explicitly looking, then put a colon and give your version, right? And let's see, right? I know this is available, so I'm doing it. You see, it is downloading. So what it says that, okay, I am looking for this version. It's a pulling from library. Library means Docker Hub repository, right? So it will go to Docker Hub and look for this image, which version? 18.04, right? And then this is the image ID. It is trying to pull, and it will pull from there. It says that, okay, I pulled this image. So that means complete, right? And digest SHA-250, as I told you, is a NASA file format for the UUID of any object. Here my image is the object, right? So this is the UUID, and it is downloaded newer image of Ubuntu. Which version? 18.04, because I explicitly mentioned that version. All right, so that's the reason it is doing that. So whenever we want, we can do like that. So this is done, right? And it is coming from Docker library, right? Which is Docker Hub 18.04. Now can I see it? So just go and see Docker images, you will get to see it. So repository is coming from Ubuntu. What is the version? Tag is nothing but a version, right? Tag is nothing but a version. So this image is tagged with this version 18.04. right? This is my image ID which I told you, right? 12-digit ID. So 4 on the middle, 4 on my left hand side, 4 on my right hand side. So 4 plus 4 plus 4 is 12-digit ID. And always container ID, image ID, network ID, right? Anything, it will be always 12-digit for Docker as a standard format. Created this image was created 13 days ago in Docker Hub, and that image I have downloaded. So it will give me the date, and this is the size, right? So if you see few MBs, right? 63.2 MB, right? So this image is downloaded. Now if I fire docker info command, right? And let me go back and check. So if you see, earlier it was showing me 0. Now one image is pulled. That means downloaded images. How many downloaded images are available? Only one. Which one? Ubuntu 18.04. Alright, so it has updated. But did I start the container? No. Right, so it will be 0. Right, or you can cross verify docker ps. Right, nothing is running. Or is it stopped? Right, nothing. So 0. Right, now this image is available. Docker image. You can use image ls or you can use images. I use images. Both are same. Right, so you can use even ls also. Ls means list. So both are same. I use images. Right, so let me start the container. What is this container command? Run command. What is the definition of container? Running instance of an image. Run. Right, you have to start, then only container will be running. From where? From the downloaded image. Right, so docker run. And yesterday I was talking about hyphen I to create an interactive terminal and run in background. So I was using this thing and I club together. I can use club together means I can use ITD. So this hyphen is shared, right? This hyphen is shared between all the thing, hyphen I, hyphen T, hyphen D. It is actually like this. You can club together and you can even interchange also, right? Terminal first interactive and then like this, or background first detach, right? And then T, then I, right? But to remember, right, to say, when I say, right, dit, right? So I'm comfortable with dit, but basically it's basically this hyphen is shared between all the three arguments, right? So it is like this. Now, yesterday we were talking, I was directly using, right? So let me show you. So just put like help, right? So when you say help, you will see all the arguments here, right? So I was using few things, right? So TT is terminal, right? It will create a sudo session for me, right? TT, right? U means hyphen U means user, right? So whenever I want to pass a particular user, I can give, right, user name or UID, right? Hyphen U. Hyphen V is for volume. When you create storage, it will do. Or you want to specify working directory that, okay, take this from this directory. This is my default directory. We can use all this. So let me go on top and then I'll explain you one by one. So I was using this hyphen T hyphen I because Docker has all these options available, right? So if you see Docker run command and options, right? What are the options? These options hyphen T hyphen D based on how I want to process my command, right? I can pick up the options and I can process my command. So you see run a command in new container. So when you create Docker run, it will basically start a new container. Always remember Docker run is it will always create a new container. So whenever I want to create any container, right, I use this Docker run and provide the image, right, in this command. So it will start, right, that container from the image, right? So what are the options, right? So you see hyphen A, right? So hyphen A, we can attach, right? So any standard input or output, right? If you want to pass some input or anything, you put hyphen A, right? So it will take it. Or if you want to use full argument, double hyphen, as I told you yesterday, double hyphen, and then you can use these things, right? So basically you can use with all the things, right? So hyphen A, and then you can attach anything, whatever you want, you can attach it, right? Based on the thing, it will automatically take it, right? And it has given you some format on all that thing also, right? So it will do all that things, right? So these are all Linux internals, right? So normally we keep it default only, right? If you see hyphen C is for CPU, right? So if you want to show the CPU or number of CPUs, all that thing, we can use with hyphen C. All right. Hyphen D I use very frequently. Hyphen D means detach, right? If you use hyphen D, single D, because as I said, single hyphen and first letter of argument, which is hyphen D, Or if you want to use full argument, then double hyphen and type the full name of the argument. The name of the argument is detach or hyphen D. Hyphen D detach means runs the container in background. Right? If you don't use hyphen D, it will display all the logs. Right? It will display all the logs and your full screen will be full with so many lines of log file, which I don't need. So normally what we do when we start container, we don't want to see, right, all the logs and all the events, right? We always just use Docker, right, hyphen D. So it will unnecessary information will be running in the background and it will print the container ID. That is what we need, right? When container is created, just show me the container ID. So basically it runs the container in background mode, right? So that in my screen, it should not fill with all the logs, right? Eventually we will see that also, don't worry about it, right? So that is the hyphen D I run in detach mode or a background mode. Then hyphen E for environment variable. If you want to set some environment variable, right, we can set through this thing. So I'll be talking not today, but probably tomorrow or day after, we'll start picking up the environment variables and so many other things, right? So through the command line, because Docker is all about command line. So we'll be using eventually all these things. Don't worry about it, right? Right. So one in one is not possible, but we'll be using, right, eventually, because we with the help of these arguments, my command will change, right? My response, my action, everything will be defined through this argument, and we will eventually explore each and everything, right? So all these are inbuilt thing. Same way if I go further later down, so host name, right? So my container host name, wherever if I need to expose my host name information also, I use hyphen H, right? So all that info we use. I use hyphen I as an interactive, right? Basically it will create, right, a interactive session. I can directly go and basically interact with my container. Whenever I create, I can interact with it by creating a this interactive thing. So I can interact by using hyphen I, and then hyphen L for labels, right? If you see all first letter, right? So interactive label. M for memory. If I want to define some memory limit or something, we can do that, right? So all that thing we will see under orchestration. All these topics are covered under orchestration. CPU, memory, what is the load on my container, everything we will see, right? I can fetch, I can fire one command and get all the reports. This container using how much CPU, how much memory, right? So that time we will talk about it, right? P is for port number, right? So it will basically ports, right? Container port number, right? So if you see, we can publish container port number. So we will start using it probably today itself. I'll start using it if time permits. I'll take one example and then we will start using it. And then P means publish all. So there is a small p and capital P. Don't get confused. All right. Capital P means you want to publish all, everything, right? P means only specific port number, right? Which you want to expose, right? 8080 or that thing. Or my application has a default port number, publish all, we can use capital or small letter. Same way, hyphen T is for, right? It will create a terminal session, right? It will create one terminal sudo session for me, right? And I can do whatever action I want to do with that container with my session, right? I create one session and perform all the actions. So it will always be good to create a terminal session, and within session nobody can do any other action because you are taking the session and you can do all the actions, right? So we'll be doing this thing, right? And then hyphen V for user, hyphen V for volume. We will be using volume probably not tomorrow, maybe day after, because we'll be start creating volumes also very soon. And then working directory, right? Probably when we create container images, I will set my default working directory and all that thing, so that time will pick up. So normally we are going to use it, and these are all supported options which are available. So command and options. So that is what I was doing. So let me go back. Any questions, guys, so far? So far so
Yes,
good.
sir.
Are you with me? Okay,
I
okay,
have
okay.
one query. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
go ahead,
the
please.
username that you have shown in the option, so that is like run the container using that username, or what it is, what it means.
So not use username like your name or my name, right? It is not related to that. If my application has some username, let's say database application, right? Normally we create test user for checking or logging the database, or some application where we want to pass the credential. So my container, when I want to start, and my container only I can access through some credential. That time I can pass the user information.
Okay, okay. I mean, if the container has any component which uses the credential of a specific user, then we
Yes,
have to pass it like that.
yes, yes, exactly.
Okay. Got
It's related to container. When I say Docker run means I am talking about my container, which is, or my application which is running in container. So if my database application or any other application which has some user credential, without that I cannot access it, right? So I will pass -u when I want to access the container, and my container can be accessed. Normally for databases, we do all that thing, right? We never lose our database just like that. Backend should always be, right, pass through some authenticated and authentication layer, which is credentials, username and password.
And
All
if
right.
I not,
So
if I don't pass the terminal option, what would it would take? I mean, the default terminal it will take, or how it will be?
no, it will
ITD
just,
you pass.
yeah, it will just create the container and that's it, right? If I want to do some actions, I will create my session, right? So if you have multiple Linux machine, right? Multiple Linux boxes. I want to log in and do some action on particular machine. I log in and create session, and then in that session, right? Putty and all these create session in the background, right? And then you perform all the actions, right? List folder, create folder, installation, uninstallation, applying patching, or whatever you want to do.
So each time when you pass the T, it creates a new terminal or a session and starts the container.
Yes,
That's what it means. Yeah. Okay.
yes, yes. To that particular container, because it is part of the container. When I'm creating a new container, it's part of that session. So it will create a session for me also, right? Today I may not be able to show you, but eventually maybe tomorrow I'll show you how to go inside and do all the actions, right? Because I want to start my application, I want to stop my application, I want to load multiple software on my application. My application needs so many other things. So all that customization I can do it when I have my own session available. Right, basically it's a Linux de facto standard, right? You will need to create a session and your action will be done so that nobody can kill your actions, right? So your actions will be through the sessions. You can have your own session. All right. So container is nothing but a virtualized environment itself. So I need to have my session and I can take over my container and do whatever action I want to do. As simple as that. So we have only image we have downloaded, but we don't have any container. So let me quickly go Docker run, and now, right, I will create, right, interactive terminal and like this, right? Or let me do separately, right? So this time I'll do separately, and hyphen name. Always try to give some name to the container. Otherwise, right, somebody, it will give some default name, right? I don't want to have that name. You can give appropriate name. I'm using test 123. You can give anything, front end, web application, right? Whatever naming standard you are following, you can do that. For front end, you follow some naming standard. Back end, you follow some naming standard. Middle tier, you can use all that thing. So I'm using name, and then, right, let me give the image. So it will start content from which image. So at the end, you should always give the image, right? So this is my image, but here I'm looking explicitly for this version. Otherwise it will go and pull the latest. So explicitly I'm going to start this content from this image. So container is the nothing but a running instance, right, of the image. So you have to give the image. So this container will be started from this image. So you have always run command. You should always don't say just a run, it will get confused, right? Currently we have only one image, but you should explicitly mention run from this thing. And when you start the container, give this name, right? And I will be creating the session with that thing, terminal session, right? So that I can take the control of container and perform all the actions, right? So I am doing it, and you see this is created, right? So first 12 digit will be my container ID. How to see the container, whether it is running or not? Docker ps command, right? Docker ps is nothing but print the status of running container only running container. So let's see if it is running. It is running. Can you see this ID? Right? It is running 12 digit ID. Right? So this is my container ID coming from the above. We don't need to remember big number, just the initial latest few letters, 12 digit, and we are here. Right? Let me quickly count it for you. So you can see 4 digit in the middle, 4 on left hand side, 4 on right hand side. So again 12 digit, right? Running from which image? This contains running from Ubuntu 18.04 version. So this is my version. Command probably I'll talk tomorrow because there is some additional information needed that we have not yet reached there. Tomorrow I will give you information and then we will talk about it, right? This container I created just now, 16 seconds ago. What is the status, right? Your container should be up and running. So it is up and running since last 15 seconds. Port number we haven't mentioned. So next time I'll bring the port number. And what is the status now? It is test 123, right? I gave you one command in the morning, right, in the beginning of today's session. Let me go and check. So I'll just come here and see now how many containers are there. Total one container. What is the status? Is it running? Yes, it is running. So running one. So my container is created and it is running. Did I pause it? Did I stop it? No. How many images we pulled? One. So as I said, this information will be dynamically updated by Docker, right, as a state. So I can see now, earlier it was 0000 when we started the session. Now we downloaded one image. I see the count is increased to 1. I started the container. I see the count is increased to 1. And what is the status? Running. So it is showing me, okay, one container and it is in running state. All right. So as I mentioned, this container which is running and I don't need it, right? What is the name of container? Test123. You can use either the ID or either the name, because this name is mapped to this ID or this ID is mapped to this name, right? So we gave the name. So it has not picked the random name, right? So because who will remember the IDs? Name is slightly comfortable. Let's say I don't need it. So we can stop the container, right? Container means this container I can stop it. So when I say stop, it is stopped. Now again go back to Docker PS. See, is it really stopped? Now it is stopped. It is no more running, right? That means PS will give you the status of running container. So it is not running. That means it is not give you status. But when I say all means it is not running, exited. It will tell me everything. So this was the container. Yes, this was the ID, right? And this is the thing, and it is exited because I forcefully stopped it, right? Now what? So now let's go and start this container or docker info command. Where is my docker info? To see, right? So if I come here on top and see one container, yes, one container is still there. Is it running? No. Last time it was showing me one, but now what did I do? I stopped this container. So you see the status is again changed it here automatically. All right. So that container is stopped. Which container is stopped? Right. This container is stopped.